Tonight on Reporting Scotland, former Rangers owner Sir David Murray apologises to fans for selling the club to Craig White. He sold the club in 2011 to Mr White, who had previously been banned from serving as a company director. It went into liquidation the following year.
If I wanted to say no, I could have. I went on the facts in front of me.
And would you apologise to those Rangers fans?
Of course I'd apologise. Yeah, listen, I'm not one of these people who run a company and hide.
Also on tonight's programme, we'll take a look at Keir Starmer's U-turn on welfare cuts and what it means for people here. After 3 years and a lot of people power, Edinburgh Filmhouse is open again.
Coming up in the sport, Brendan Rodgers tells Celtic supporters to prepare to be excited by new signing Benjamin Nygren, who signed a 5-year deal with the champions.
Glastonbury, it's so good to be back.
And after 2 years away from the limelight, Lewis Capaldi makes his comeback on the Glastonbury stage. Hello, I'm Laura Goodwin. Welcome to Friday's programme. The former owner of Rangers, Sir David Murray, has apologised to fans for selling the Glasgow Football Club to the businessman Craig White, describing it as a decision he bitterly regrets. Sir David owned the club for over 20 years, seeing it win 15 league championships and 20 domestic cups. Sir David sat down with our Scotland editor, James Cook.
Premier League champions, 2008-2009.
Under Sir David Murray, Rangers dominated Scottish football for years. But by the time he sold the club, it was in debt and in trouble. The new owner, Craig White, had previously been banned from serving as a company director, and his tenure was disastrous, ending in the liquidation of the business. Sir David now says he made a huge error of judgment.
Well, obviously I regret it, I'm not denying that. But the facts that were put in front of us, taking all the factors that were going around, he had proof of funds, he had a lawyer's letter, he had a legal's letter, he had an offered document to spend £5 million a year on players. He was allegedly a Rangers supporter, and the deal was done.
But you say in the book you bitterly regret it and it was a huge error of judgment.
Well, it was.
Isn't the truth you were desperate to sell and you saw what you wanted to see in Craig White and didn't do enough due diligence?
No. If I wanted to say no, I could have. I went on the facts in front of me.
And would you apologise to those Rangers fans?
Of course I'd apologise. Yeah, listen, I'm not one of these people who run a company and hide. I'm not hiding. I'm honest enough to say, it's very well, it was a terrible moment, and I apologise to all the staff, good people, and I know many of them to this day, and I remain friends with them to this day. But I'd hope, in hindsight, they look at the facts and think, I was put in a very difficult position.
Sir David is still defiant about a controversial arrangement at Rangers which involved using trusts to reduce players' tax bills, even though the club eventually lost a lengthy legal battle with HMRC in the Supreme Court, leaving the revenue to claw back the tax that should have been paid.
Were those trophies tainted by the players not paying tax?
No, not at all.
But isn't that a way just to buy success? Isn't that really financial doping?
Not at all, no.
Why not?
Because it was proved at the end it wasn't a legal tax scheme.
How do you justify depriving the NHS and other public services of funds by going to great lengths to help millionaire footballers avoid paying tax?
But they didn't do anything illegal.
But they avoided paying tax. I'm not asking you about legality, it's a morality question.
I don't take that. I think we as a company, we paid enough tax. I don't accept that argument.
Another character who you come across is Robert Maxwell. Quite an interesting story about Robert Maxwell and the old firm. What happened there?
No, just shortly after I bought the club, my house number phoned, and my son Keith answered the phone, and the voice said, "Is David Murray there?" And said, "Who's calling?" He said, "Robert Maxwell." So I went to the phone. I said, "Yes, Robert, what can I do for you?" He said, "I'm thinking of buying Celtic. We could put Rangers and Celtic together as one. It'd be a big force." I said, "I don't think you know the script up here. I don't think it's practical, and I don't think it'd work." And that would be the end of the story.
But he wanted to merge
Celtic and Rangers.
Celtic and Rangers.
Yes.
Sir David Murray talking to our Scotland editor, James Cook. A week today, it will be a year since Labour won the general election with what was an historic landslide. However, it has been anything but plain sailing since then, with the Prime Minister forced to make numerous policy U-turns. The latest, a major climb down on changes to the benefit system after he faced a huge backbencher rebellion, among them a third of his Scottish MPs. So what will the latest welfare changes mean for Scotland? And will it be enough to bring some of Keir Starmer's more vocal rebels to heel? Our political correspondent Andrew Kerr has more.
He's the rebel with a cause. At Westminster this week, the Scottish Labour MP went against his government. Now with big concessions on welfare, he's still against the changes.
The bill has gone from a horrendously cruel and wicked bill to just being an awful bill. That's the truth of it. If we look at it in isolation and think of these concessions, we're still talking about £3 billion cut to some of the most vulnerable and disadvantaged people in society. That's not on.
Brian Leishman was one of 12 Scottish Labour MPs who rebelled against the cuts to disability benefit. The UK government have now pulled back. There will be no change for those currently receiving the personal independence payment, no cuts for the universal credit health element, and support to help people back to work will be increased.
Having listened, we've made the adjustments. The funding will be set out in the budget in the usual way, as you'd expect later in the year. But the most important thing is that we can make the reform we need. We talked to colleagues who've made powerful representations, as a result of which we've got a package which I think will work.
This week at Westminster, the Scottish Labour MP defended the then proposals.
The thrust of it, the principles that we're looking at about getting people back into work, I think is wide approval across the Parliamentary Labour Party.
And now today, we spoke on Wednesday and you supported the bill. Are you happy with the backtracking?
The principles haven't changed, as I laid out. I think, those who can work should work, those who want to work need support, and those who cannot need the support they need to live their lives. So I'm absolutely happy that backbench Labour MPs have worked with ministers to get the detail right.
It's a more complicated picture in Scotland as the adult disability payment is replacing the personal independence payment, or PIP. If spending on PIP falls, funding to Scotland falls too. The Scottish Government say they've been kept in the dark.
This is a backroom deal with Labour rebels rather than a discussion with a devolved government with responsibility for social security, or more importantly, quite frankly, disabled people themselves. So we're still waiting to see the details, both on universal credit and on the wider disability payment.
The UK government now hopes the bill will pass at Westminster on Tuesday. Small comfort after a damaging week.
And Andrew is with us now. Andrew, how hard has it been for the Prime Minister to get the rebels back in line?
Yes, this has been really a monumental climb down for the Prime Minister. He's made some really big concessions. His opponents are saying we've ended up now with a two-tier system where future disabled people will be penalised, although people in Scotland don't have to worry because we have the devolved adult disability payment. So the bill likely to pass on Tuesday, but probably 20 to 50 opponents still around, including Brian Leishman, whom we saw in the report.
And where does this leave the Prime Minister's authority?
People are left questioning his ability to govern effectively. As you said in the introduction, next week marks Labour's first year in power, and the Prime Minister was elected with that stonking great majority, but there he is, unable to steer a clear reform through Parliament, a clear policy platform. 3 big U-turns now on welfare, winter fuel and the grooming gangs inquiry. Rebellious MPs will wonder what they can get next. OK, Andrew, many thanks indeed. A 50th arrest has been made in connection with gang violence in the east and west of the country. An 18-year-old man's been arrested and charged in connection with willful fire-raising, which occurred at 3 properties on Pitcairn Grove in Edinburgh. He was to appear at Edinburgh Sheriff Court today. Now, there's no sign of a resolution in the Glasgow subway strike. There was no service today for the second time this week, and it looks like there'll be no underground trains tomorrow as well. The strikes have made it harder for people to get to Bellahouston Park for tonight's Simple Minds concert. Let's speak to our news correspondent Jamie McIver, who is there for us tonight. Jamie, what impact is the strike having?
It's certainly causing a lot of inconvenience, Laura. In that sense, the strike is having an impact, not just on people who live in Glasgow, but on people who travel into the city for big events, like the concert, the Simple Minds concert here at Bellahouston Park tonight. Now, normally many of the people who'd come to a big event at Bellahouston Park would get the subway to Ibrox, then walk over here. It's about 10 minutes away, but instead some of them have had to make other arrangements, maybe a bus, maybe the train, maybe a taxi. It maybe doesn't sound like any big hardship, but in some cases it's going to be less convenient or possibly even expensive.
Well, we booked a hotel over here because it was right next to the subway station, so we landed and we came from Perth, you came from Dumfries.
Yeah.
And then we were landed in the centre of Glasgow and we went, but we support industrial action.
No, we would be getting the subway, yeah, but we're gubbed, you know what I mean, we're knackered, so we'll have to, I don't know what we're going to do, get taxis, or which we'll probably not manage to get.
Yep, definitely getting home tonight. We come from Cambuslang, so that'll be 2 train journeys or a very expensive taxi, if we can get one, that is.
And Jamie, how hard will it be to resolve this dispute?
I'd say there's still a river to cross, I'm afraid, Laura. It's basically down to the Unite Union's concern that it believes the subway is understaffed. The union claims this means the subway is over-dependent on overtime and that shifts are being changed at the last minute too often. And there have been no talks between the two sides in the past few days. Now, SPT is the operator of the subway. It says there are enough staff and that overtime is voluntary. Now, there's another strike on the Underground tomorrow that will almost certainly mean another closure. Then after that, the union is likely to announce more strike dates unless there's a resolution.
OK, Jamie, many thanks indeed. Well, Amy is with us now. What is coming up on the 7 tonight?
Plenty come up, as always, on the programme, Laura, and we are going to be joined by the family of Niamh Jobson, who was a prominent Glasgow DJ who very sadly died of a rare aggressive form of cancer when she was just 22 years old. So Niamh's family, I speak to her brother Finn on the programme, they've set up a fund to try and aid research into osteosarcoma. So he tells us what he's doing to try and continue Niamh's legacy.
OK, Amy, many thanks.
Thank you.
Now, it's taken 3 years, 2 crowdfunding appeals and a £2 million refurbishment. But Edinburgh's Filmhouse will once again open its doors to the public tonight. The cinema complex closed abruptly after the closure of its parent company. Now run by a new charity set up by former staff members, they plan to show many of the films released during its closure. Our arts correspondent Pauline McLean reports.
Just one of the many premieres Filmhouse has hosted. This former church in Edinburgh city centre, not just a local cinema, but a focus for the film industry. Its shock closure in October 2022 was met with anger and disbelief.
It just felt like an existential threat to the film industry when it disappeared. So, yeah, that's what I feel about the Filmhouse. I think it's critical and I think it's necessary. And, you know, people look at the arts as being a luxury. It's not a luxury. It's so important.
Hi, Diggory Scott here. I just want to say a few words about the Edinburgh Filmhouse and what it means to me.
So began a 3-year campaign to save Filmhouse and open its doors. A crowdfunder raised £300,000. Its importance to the community brought a UK government grant of £1.5 million.
Open the doors!
Now the New Look Filmhouse is open for business and aware that they face the same challenges as before when it comes to competition for a cinema-going audience.
We've got 70mm, 35mm, all the analogue, and as well as the digital. So we can show films that no other cinema can, and we do show films that no other cinema can or does in the city particularly. So we think we've got an advantage in a funny kind of way.
And so far that's an offer too good to refuse for film fans.
We've sold something like 2,500 tickets to our opening week programme. Lots of films are sold out. For a cinema like ours, which is an independent venue, summer often isn't the easiest time, so actually it feels like we're having a really blockbuster start at what's not an easy time of year for a venue like ours.
So after 3 years and 2 crowdfunding appeals, the doors of Filmhouse are officially open. And campaigners say it's now over to the community to keep it all going. Pauline McLean reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Now, 2 years ago, he struggled to finish his Glastonbury set, but today made a triumphant return to the festival. Lewis Capaldi was unveiled as the surprise performer on the Pyramid stage, to the delight of the crowd and his fans watching at home. He had taken time away from the public eye in recent years to focus on his physical and mental health. Hope Webb has more.
It was a brave return to the Pyramid stage for Lewis Capaldi, a full circle moment for the 28-year-old after his 2023 appearance led to concern.
So you probably won't see much of me for the rest of the year. I was getting kinda used to being someone you love.
For the last 2 years, he's taken a break to get support for Tourette syndrome and his mental health. But recently, rumours started to swirl that he would appear at Glastonbury once more. So when he did, fans were delighted.
We didn't know, saving all my precious. How long till it feels?
It comes after he drops a brand new single, Survive, at midnight. The emotional and inspirational song has been praised by both fans and critics. Despite his meteoric rise to fame, he's always stayed close to his roots. His earliest musical memories lie in the town of Bathgate at the Dreadnought live music venue. But back then, he was just the warm-up act.
It never stood out at the time. Songs that I can remember were pretty good, but I know there's that old phrase that you've got to watch the quiet ones, and I think that would probably sum it up nicely. He was just, I think, just quietly confident, went about his songwriting and his performances, and obviously the rest is history.
It's got a distinctly Lewis Capaldi sound to it.
Ross first met Lewis when he performed on his hospital radio programme at just 9 years old. He went on to work with him throughout his early career. He says his time off has been well deserved.
I'm sure he'll have had a bit of a laugh in that time, a few shandies, no doubt, and yeah, definitely, I'm sure he's kind of worked away behind the scenes, got the kind of help that he's looking for, and what better way than to just go full circle and come back on the stage at Glastonbury. 1, 2, 3, 4.
For fans, it's the day they've been waiting for. 16-year-old Neve from Glenrothes went viral after this video of her signing in BSL while Lewis sang was uploaded by her mum.
It was so funny. He was swearing as always, and then he was apologising because I was 10. He's like, he'd swear and then he'd be like, oh, sorry. And I'm like, no, it's fine. And he was just so funny. And then he was so kind. I feel so happy that he's hopefully on the comeback.
A welcome return to the stage for Scotland's most successful artist in recent years, and possibly a sign of even more music to come. Hope Webb reporting Scotland.
And you can watch Lewis Capaldi's set on iPlayer, and there's full coverage of Glastonbury across the BBC all weekend. Wasn't it great to see him back? I know, so pleased.
So good.
I found it quite emotional watching him coming back.
I forgot kind of what it was like a couple of years ago and how well he did to get through it.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Oh, so good.
It does beg the question, you know, our audience might know that you sing as well, Lewis, although Sally Magnuson mentioned it a few times.
She might have.
We're all speculating when you're making your musical comeback.
Well, I'll keep you waiting a little bit longer,
Will you?
Laura. But,
do you fancy doing sport instead?
I do, yeah. But, before you go, I'll get to the sport. Hello there. Let's start with some transfer news tonight because, yes, Brendan Rodgers has told Celtic supporters to prepare to be excited by Benjamin Nygren after the Swedish attacker signed a 5-year deal with the Scottish champions. Hibernian head coach David Gray says the club have captured one of the most eye-catching young players in the Scottish Premiership in midfielder Josh Mulligan. The 22-year-old left Dundee at the end of the season when his contract expired. Jacob Fernley's been handed a tricky draw for the first round of Wimbledon. He's up against one of the brightest prospects in men's tennis, Brazilian teenager João Fonseca. You may remember the Scot gave Novak Djokovic a bit of a scare at the All-England club last year, just weeks after leaving his college. And his form since then means he goes in ranked 51st in the world. Fernley's opponent, who's just 18, is taking part in his first Wimbledon. He reached the third round at the French Open earlier this year and impressed at Eastbourne this week. Elsewhere, Cameron Norrie, who reached the semi-finals in 2022, will take on Spanish veteran Roberto Bautista Agut. The British and Irish Lions play their first tour match in Australia tomorrow with 5 Scots hoping to make their mark. They're up against Western Force in Perth, and there will be 4 more warm-up games in Brisbane, Sydney, Canberra and Adelaide before the 3-match Test series against the Wallabies begins on the 19th of July. BBC Scotland's chief sports writer Tom English is in Australia and has been assessing what the Scots have to do to impress Andy Farrell.
In the hunt for Test match places, Saturday's game against the Western Force here in Perth is a big day for the 5 Scots involved, for the 4 starters and for the 1 who will come off the bench. Sione Tuipulotu is back in his natural habitat at inside centre, having played outside centre against the Pumas. He probably has his nose ahead of Bundy Aki in the race for the 12 jersey in the Test match series, but it's tight and he could do with a meaty reminder of his excellence on Saturday. Finn Russell, described on Friday by Andy Farrell, his coach, as one of his generals, definitely has a Test match spot in his grasp. This is his first opportunity on tour. Is this Finn Russell time? This is the first examination of it. Pierre Schoeman, probably currently 3rd choice at loosehead prop. He needs to give Andy Farrell something to think about against the Force. Similarly, Scott Cummings, brilliant player for Scotland, missed in the Six Nations, aggression, work rate, line-out prowess. He is an underdog, but he's an underdog with a hell of a bite. Hugh Jones will come off the bench, obviously desperate to re-establish his stellar partnership with Sione Tuipulotu, and maybe to show Andy Farrell that what works for Scotland can also work for the Lions. So it's early days on this tour, but the stakes are already very, very high.
Jennifer Dodds is aiming for back-to-back Winter Olympic gold medals, while Bruce Mowatt's team are looking to go one better than their silver last time out, as the curling teams were the first officially confirmed Team GB athletes for Milan Cortina 2026. Mowat, along with Grant Hardy, Bobby Lammy and Hammy McMillan Jr. were narrowly beaten by Sweden in the 2022.
It's a great opportunity for the guys and I. It's been our second time of trying to do this to get to the Olympics, and yeah, winning the World Championships in April is probably what solidified our spot into the Olympics and compete for hopefully this time a gold medal.
I think since the last Olympics, that was my goal, was to get back to the Olympics, obviously, but for both disciplines. Obviously, the disappointment in Beijing coming 4th always feels like a little bit of unfinished business there. And as well, the women's obviously winning gold last time was a dream come true. So I'm excited to get back there, obviously with a new team.
We'd love to medal, ultimately. We know that we're good enough to. We were definitely good enough to medal at that World Championships and just kind of fell short. So really, really excited to be part of Team GB. It's been a lifelong dream.
The new owner of Dumbarton hopes to build solid foundations at the football club after completing his takeover of the League Two side. Canadian businessman Mario Lapointe says he's putting half of his retirement money into Dumbarton and outlined some of his plans to the media today, which include laying an artificial pitch and improving other facilities at the club, hoping to see a return for the first team.
I don't want to throw money into the ground like this. Okay, so basically, next year would be June 2026. That would be when we start digging this ground and put a turf on. In all best of aspects, because I don't control the community trust. We have to make sure that we attend, you know, the non-football, the assets and facility to make sure that they make money, and then it'll be more for the football part of it. Okay, so I know that people would like to say, well, no, I'm getting Ronaldo to finish his career here and so on, right? But it's not going to happen, okay?
So no Ronaldo at the Rock.
Yeah, breaking news.
Breaking news.
They're not signing Ronaldo. I'm shocked.
Exactly. And before I go, an apology to Lewis Capaldi for my terrible effort earlier there.
Oh, I think he's got other things to focus on tonight. His triumphant comeback. Thank you very much, Lewis. Right, time now for the weather. And Gillian, how's the weekend looking?
It's looking better than today.
Okay.
Today was a bit of a washout for most of us. But yes, looks like we'll see more in the way of dry and bright weather over the weekend. And some warm sunny spells as well, Laura. Good evening to you. Today was a bit of a washout for most of us. We've had outbreaks of rain working their way across the country, heavy in places. Down to a warm front, which is pulling away northwards. But as you you can see, the trailing cold front not far behind it, and that's going to bring some more outbreaks of rain tonight. So through this evening and overnight, lots of clouds, some outbreaks of rain, turning lighter and patchier later in the night as that rain works its way southwards. So towards morning, we'll see some clearer skies developing across northern Scotland. Winds picking up as the night goes on, but it will be very mild, with temperatures holding up at 16 or 17 Celsius in parts of central and southern Scotland. So quite a muggy feel to things tonight. For the summer sessions in Glasgow, staying quite damp and breezy through this evening, but it will be mild, temperatures holding up around 16 Celsius right through the early hours. Tomorrow's looking like a bit of a better prospect in terms of dry and bright weather, with sunshine lasting well into the evening, but it's looking like a blustery day. Let's take a closer look at tomorrow, because we'll start still with the remnants of that weather front, bringing cloud and some patchy rain to the south, but that quite quickly pulls away, leaving plenty of sunshine on offer. Just a few showers pushing into the far north and northwest on strong winds. The black discs here indicating wind gusts, and they'll touch gale force for the northern and western Isles and exposed parts of the northwest coast. And generally across the country it will be blustery, but lots of sunshine on offer. Temperatures reaching the high teens, if not 20, 21, perhaps 22 Celsius in the best of it in the south and east. More in the way of cloud in the northwest, with those few showers pushing in, and not as warm. Temperatures around the mid-teens here. So those sunny spells lasting well into the evening. Still a few showers in the far north, not many of them. They will tend to fade away tomorrow night. Still windy in the far north. Further south, the winds tending to ease down, and it will be a cooler and a fresher night, a better one for sleeping. Into the second half of the weekend for Sunday, high pressure trying to build in, but you can see we have a warm front in place. So I think the best of the sunshine on Sunday will be during the morning. Through the afternoon, that warm front bringing increasing amounts of cloud, producing some patchy rain for the Western Isles and the Northwest Highlands, but still temperatures up to 19 or 20 Celsius, and still blustery in Shetland first thing, but for most the winds much lighter. Monday will be warm. It's a warm, humid air mass, but the risks of a thundery breakdown. Temperatures, though, into the mid-20s. Laura.
Gosh, quite warm on Monday. Thank you very much indeed. Now, tonight's main news again. Former Rangers owner Sir David Murray apologises to fans for selling the club to Craig White. It went into liquidation the following year. And that's where we leave you for the moment. I'll be here with your late news at around 10:30 tonight. But until then, from everyone on the team, do enjoy your weekend and the rest of your evening, and thank you very much for being with us. Bye-bye.